for you to be able to have a conversation, to talk to them. And then if you go further up, maybe with our CEO, probably 3 minutes tops. Maybe you're just heading to the lift and you just have to quickly catch him. If you go further up to the board, to network with the board, it's even less of a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose when it's acknowledging this.
Welcome back to The Great Talks. I am your host. In this podcast series, we talk a little bit about career related topics from the perspective of experienced professionals, and in hopes that it will give you some insight into how this can help you in your career or maybe in your own personal life, wherever you may go. So in this episode, we're talking about networking and whether it's a pretentious way to make friends or is it a useful skill to have. And if so, how has it helped you personally and how someone else might benefit from it. My take is that networking is something that everybody does. It's just that maybe they don't realize it. And so it's just a matter of bringing awareness into this and so that your future interactions become a little bit more intentional and deliberate so that if you need it, you know how to harness it, right? So today we're here with Edwin, Chloe, and Prusho. Let's start with Edwin. As Chief Marketing Officer, you've had a long career so far. And, you say you're an introvert, right?
Extreme introvert.
Extreme introvert, wow.
Yeah.
But, the impression of a marketer is that they are somebody who likes to go out and then meet people and, just be there in the public area. So this is interesting that you say you're an extreme introvert, but also, a chief marketing officer. So tell us a bit about your own personal journey with networking. How has it evolved with your career or your lifestyle over the years? And has it been more important, less important at any given point?
I think first and foremost, like I said, I'm a very extreme introvert. Yeah. So, but to me, networking is not only just confined to, in an event or in a party, how you talk around, how you chat with people, but it's rather that how you manage relationships with people to people, human touch. So, that's what I felt about networking. There are instances, like when I was much younger, during I was much younger, there is a sense of inferiority within myself, especially when it's met up with someone that is higher positions up there, or even some, to a certain extent, Westerner. Yeah, maybe, in my generations, there's a colonial mindset that inherited. So you felt that a bit inferior in a sense. But as years, experience gain, what I felt is that, there's no such things as inferior because everyone's tend to have a superiority within themselves compared to another people. Just that you might not realize it. Yeah. So just bring it up yourself, make yourself comfortable, in the public or even among your peers, because if you don't feel comfortable, somehow, the aura of yourself shows. So you're the one that your opposite partner will also felt that, you are not comfortable with him or with her, So I think most important thing is be yourself and comfortable as far as the networking is concerned. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I find it interesting that you say that it is beyond just socializing events that are made for networking. It's also just your day-to-day interactions with your friends, your colleagues, and just meeting new people organically, essentially. Although it might be a bit tough for some people to just be themselves in a situation where another person is concerned, because I would imagine sometimes you feel a bit self-conscious, right? So maybe I'll direct this question to Chloe. As someone who is also quite introverted, do you have those thoughts, and how do you approach, meeting new people who you're not familiar with, don't know what to talk about?
Yeah, I think for me, like, networking is more of a deliberate term because I'm very much an introvert as well. So to me, like, there's a very clear divide between making friends and like a networking event, because networking is something that you need to bring your best self to, or you need to have like a more professional approach to, right? But I think along the way, I sort of realized that, like, back to your question on how like I approach people, is that right?
Or approach the situation if put into it.
I think like I just try to relax a little bit more, try to just be myself, like be a good listener, because I mean, as an introvert, sometimes if you don't have like, you're not comfortable like speaking out immediately, I think being a good listener is like another approach to this situation. Just like listen, ask a lot of questions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's ultimately, I guess, it's just whether or not you can form that connection with someone if they want to be heard.
Yeah, exactly.
Then that's one way to interact with them as well, right?
Yep.
So, okay, we've heard from introverts, but what about Prusho? So, all right, you are someone who I would say, from my observation, is very comfortable meeting new people. You build connections with people quite easily, and you seem to kind of just bounce off others quite naturally as well. So, after what Edwin and Chloe has shared, what are your thoughts?
For me, I think the key point is I am genuinely curious about people. You know, I met Edwin not long ago, and earlier this morning, earlier before this discussion, I sat down with him and I was asking him all these different questions. I wanted to know, hey, where is he from? What has he been doing in his career? What sort of preference he has, you know, in terms of things that he likes. At the same time, I was also sharing some of the experiences of the previous CMO that I have faced as well. So my immediate inkling is, what is the common denominator that we have? You know, between me and Edwin, we are probably different generation, you know, different background. But
He's indicating I'm old.
Experience and wise.
But I think but we do have a common denominator. The common denominator is, we work in the same organization, and he's the CMO, and he will also be curious to know how the previous CMO was, what's the story was like. So, I think naturally, you know, the common denominator strikes out the conversation, and then from there, you know, you lead on to further understand about the person. Yeah. So that's how my approach to networking is.
Yeah, I think I quite relate to that, you know. So finding the common denominator might not be as difficult or as, any mind games or anything that you play. Sometimes the place that you're in as well is already the common denominator, so you can start there and then just share a little bit about each other, which I find quite interesting that sometimes there are people who try to interact with others by asking them questions, but not sharing anything about themselves. But I feel like sharing things about yourself is also a very big part of networking, because while you're getting to know someone else has to get to know you too. And that way it can be a two-way street of like mutually benefiting each other in the future. If let's say you have any connections you need to make and all that, you kind of know where each other are coming from. And yeah, networking isn't really about ulterior motives, right? Sometimes it's just a naturally occurring thing. And then you are building connections with other people in a way that maybe you didn't expect. So you come in trying to do something, and then maybe later on you are you realize that, hey, actually they are also good for this other thing, or that I can help them here. It's not about them helping me, I can help them. Do you guys have any stories about how networking might have helped you, or you have helped someone else just because you coincidentally met them?
I suppose there are instances where it was not a deliberate networking attempt, but rather it just so happened that we were put in that situation. One such thing is my current boss. In a way, I networked with him during one of the training sessions. And during the session, I was able to observe him and strike off some conversations and all that. But after that training session, I also followed up by dropping him an email to say that, hey, it was nice working in a team with you. So that then led on to having further discussions and further opportunities for me to, have interactions with him. And that then led to him subsequently offering me, hey, I have a role in this particular team. Would you be interested to join? So I suppose my initial intention was genuinely wanting to know more about what he's doing, but ended up, he had an opportunity, and I saw that it's something that interests me, and I, pulled the trigger and joined.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, because sometimes these things just open up opportunities you never were even looking for to begin with. Edwin, Chloe, do you have any other?
Ladies first.
Off the top of your head.
I think, I sort of got my job here through networking, actually, because I started out here as an MA. So I was attending a lot of graduate fairs when I graduated, and that's where I met Laura, which was our MA program coordinator. So she was giving a talk during the fair, at the career fair, and it was pretty silent. I think like no one was really speaking up. So I think she looked kind of uncomfortable. So I tried to like ask more questions and like try to engage with her more. And after the event, I dropped her like a message on LinkedIn, and I think that's how I got my job here as well.
Oh,
So
that's interesting. Did she remember you from all the questions when you dropped an email?
yeah, definitely she did.
Okay, yeah, visibility. Look at that.
As for me, I'm really extreme introvert. I was just telling some of my friends that when I drive, I rather, some people like to listen to music or anything. I would rather be silent, quiet. So you were ask me in my house, that's pretty private, right? Where's the best place for me in the whole house? I would tell you it's a toilet.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's how extreme
fair.
introvert that I am. So yeah. Well, you probably can see that. For those people who knows me, you can see two sides of me. In my past, on all my old jobs, I do give public seminars, do a lot of talks, and thereafter, you see a lot of people surrounding me, talking, asking me a lot of questions. So it seems to perceptions that I'm a very extrovert person, but deep inside my heart, actually, I'm very introvert. Yeah. So, but there are circumstances that actually force me to become sort of like extrovert. Yeah, more comfortable myself in mingling around with people. That is when I was seconded to Indonesia. Yeah. So when you are far away from home, you felt quite lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what actually helps in a way felt for me to settle down in Indonesia was when I joined this association by the name of Malaysian Chamber of Jakarta. So that is where you started to meet up with a lot of Malaysians in the Malaysian embassy, and that's where you start feeling home, and that actually break the ice. Technically, you don't need to break the ice at that as well, because everyone just felt so lonely in overseas, and suddenly you just get everyone together, and that actually has came a long way. Yeah. It did help me in a sense that when I was there, I was supposed to do a bit of a new setup for a company. So I think as a foreigner over there, it's very hard to get connections into anyone's over there or getting clients for say. So, but for this particular networking, with this chamber, it really helps me a lot. I can't imagine without this chamber, I won't be able to survive over there, and that's helped also on my my business as well. Yeah, in my career in Indonesia, and that's really helped a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, you just kind of be forced into a situation where you have to meet people and you find common ground. Like that goes back to what Prusho was saying also. You just have to find common ground and some of work off of that. And then from there, it will develop into something that, you wouldn't imagine as well. I also have a story to share, actually, because something came to mind when talking about all of these things, is that there was a point where we attended some training externally, and part of the training had to do with your communication skills as well. And so they assessed us on how well we give public speeches and speak in front of crowds. So the task was to just give a speech on any topic of your choice. The point here is to assess your speaking abilities. And I decided to just talk about something that I personally believe in, which is you should tell people your hopes and dreams instead of keep it to yourself. And so the whole speech was about that. And so in that speech, to prove my point, I shared my goals, which is at the time was something a bit niche, and that I wanted to be a medical illustrator. So something in Malaysia not commonly heard of. And so I said, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be a medical illustrator. I do not know how to go about doing it, but I'm telling you, this is what I'm working towards right now. And then after that speech, funnily enough, somebody in the crowd was just speaking of, going back, because my point here that I was making was that you never know that somebody will know someone, or that somebody will know someone who knows someone, and then they could help you achieve that goal. And then after that speech, someone came up to me during the Q&A round and it's just like, funny you say you never know who might know someone, because my sister is actually a medical illustrator and went to the school that you talked about. So I can connect you to her and you can just like find out more. So then from there, it's just kind of like, what are the odds, Like somebody in this small group, I would say about 20 people. You really never know who is, who's there, who's listening, and who do they know. And sometimes they share with you as well. You can also refer back to them, It's like, oh, I know a guy, you want me to connect you to him? Have you guys ever experienced that? No.
I did. Definitely I did, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes like, they tell you something and then you're just kind of like, oh yeah, I know this guy, they're doing the same thing and all that. Yeah. So on the topic of curiosity about others, about other people, is this something that you think is a skill that somebody has to develop, or is it intuitive? Interest in other people and wanting to know more about them.
I think that there's no one size fits all, certain people, they just have the kind of charisma that will attract people to talk to you, and many of us don't. That's include me, right? I don't really have that kind of charisma that people suddenly walk over and talk to me, like to talk to me. Yeah, I don't have that. So, but I mean, over the years, the experience I gained is that you just have to be comfortable with yourself when you stand out there, be genuine, when you talk to people, and you will start to attract, those who felt sincerely want to talk to you to come over. Instead of you pretending to, find, just pretending yourself to make yourself feel that, you are different, or it's just not you, then, somehow the people can sense it. Yeah. That's how I feel it.
What about you guys? Do you think it's a certain skill that you need to have to kind of, some people say fake it till you make it, and some people kind of rely on that, where they're just, I'll pretend to be comfortable, but I'm not, and then eventually I will get into that. Is that something you guys experienced?
Well, for me, I suppose I agree with Edwin when you say that people's approach to this problem can be, depending on their character itself. And for those, for those who are extroverted, who genuinely have their way to talk to people, I don't think they will need an answer for this, right? It's more of those who are genuinely have a tough time to strike up a conversation. Yeah. I guess for those, my tip would be to really ask yourself, what is it you want out of the conversation, and lo and behold, regardless of how different you are in terms of background from the other person, if you genuinely think that there is something within the other person that is that can give you some sort of a experience or some sort of knowledge, then I think the conversation will flow naturally. Right. Yeah. So I could be the biggest extrovert. I can approach someone who has got no common denominator. But if I'm, genuinely curious about something within the person, I think one way or another I'll dig something out and the conversation will happen naturally. Yeah.
What do you think will happen if two introverts face to face with each other?
It's actually okay though. I feel like it's a dynamic that works because it's more comfortable with like a fellow introvert. They're not too
not pushy about.
Not really pushy, but I think extroverts can be a bit like intimidating sometimes because they just look so sure of themselves. I'm sorry, for sure. It's true. Yeah, it's just they look so confident, they look so sure of themselves. But I think with introverts, it's more of like a quiet energy, I would say. So like having that, I think vibe, having that vibe feels very comfortable for me, I would say.
Speaking of vibes, actually, sometimes when you surround yourself with certain types of people, you kind of start to absorb that quality in them. Do you think this is something that can be learned? And if somebody who wants to improve themselves in their networking skills, their conversational skills, they should just kind of be in an environment where people are talking to each other all the time? Or is this something that's developed, in their own time and space?
You mean putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation?
Yeah, just kind of like, warming up to it, getting used to it.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think
Helps.
like if you're around a lot of extroverts, it definitely pushes you out of your shell a little bit more. they force you to talk to them. So
Or like
they ask you questions and you're like, oh, okay. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, pretty sure you're saying?
For me, I think first of all is to acknowledge that there's nothing wrong with being an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
yeah.
But at the same time, if you want to have the edge to be able to connect with people and surrounding yourself, in whatever environment, I suppose you fundamentally need to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You could be, in an environment where it's all extrovert and you're the only introvert. And if the group of people don't appreciate that you're an introvert, then you will not have a good time mingling with them.
That's true.
And that will push you further away from people.
Yeah.
So I suppose for me is as an introvert, I am an introvert. I wear it on my sleeve. I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And and I'm with a group of people who take me as I come.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like a group of people who can accept and sort of play to your strengths as well will encourage you to kind of shine in a way that you are comfortable with. And then from there you sort of, grow in a way that at your own pace, and then, have someone else help you with that a little bit, right? Okay, well, some practical questions. Let's go into that route. For people who are listening, perhaps if you want to know some tips or advice from our speakers here today on like how do you go about networking with people, making new connections, perhaps maybe in the workplace, how do you know someone else from a completely different department? What are your guys' experiences with that, and what would you tell someone who is looking to improve this side of them?
I will stick to my principle, just be genuine. Yeah, just be genuine and be open. Yeah. So just like when I step into Great Eastern, suddenly I have like, close to 30 girls surrounding me.
Wow.
Okay, that's my subordinates surrounding me. But I honestly have never been in although I'm the people leader in my previous organizations as well, but most of the time I have a balance between guys and girls, but suddenly now I have, it's like crowded with all girls, So in order to make myself comfortable and they are comfortable with me, we just had a meeting and of course by department so that it wouldn't be so crowded all together at the same time. So just chit chat and say, I'm open, just want to ask me any question, just feel free to ask, and I'll be very honest to tell you what you want to know about me. Yeah.
I think mainly just to be open. I mean, you can be shy, but you can still be open to I think it's like your body language as well as like how you speak to people. I think if people know that you're open to connect, to be friends, most of the time, they'll reciprocate as well. Doesn't matter if you're shy or not. Yeah, that's my take.
Yeah. For me, one of the tips I could give someone if they want to network would be, it could happen anywhere. Most of us have some sort of hobby, right? Some people they like coffee, so that could be a hobby. Some people like watches or cars and so on. So it could be hiking, could be running. So when you have this hobby, it's a lot easier for you to join those group of people with has similar mindset or similar goal or similar interests, and that will then help you to better connect with them and network lah. And touching on your point earlier, you'll never know who knows what.
Mm-hmm.
When you go out there with a common group of people and you start talking to them about your common interests, suddenly one thing could lead to another, and suddenly you are networking, to get a new job or a new opportunity. So for me, it's sticking to, things you like, turning up there and then doing the stuff and let it naturally happen.
Yeah.
Maybe I have a questions, since we only have Pusha as an extrovert over here, Yeah. How do you court after all your girlfriends in the history?
How do I?
How do you get courting with all your
courtship.
girlfriends, courtships with all your girlfriends?
Okay.
Relationship advice.
Well, I mean, going back to my hobbies, so the courtship could also happen during,
This is the current girlfriend or wife, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
okay.
Yeah. So we had a lot of common things, and that's how we struck off the conversation. That's how one thing led to another, and now we're married 5 years. So again, it's my hobby.
So do you purposely learn the hobby to go after your wife, or
It's one way to do it, right?
I suppose, it wasn't intentional, it just happened. But the hobby itself was something that I genuinely liked. Yeah, so that's how it happened.
What is it?
Hiking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hiking. So, we both enjoy hiking, and that's how. And if you know the hiking group, they can get quite geeky. They can get very technical in terms of the different terrains out there, the different type of tools they can use, the training, the food, and so, that's the world in itself. And when you are with those people, you can really connect.
this is how your eyes break to hold her hands, is it?
Let me
I
help you
suppose,
down.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so in the context of like meeting people in certain situations, let's go back to career and say that, let's say the nature of your job itself is not actually very, doesn't encourage socializing so much, because maybe you don't have projects that work with other people from other teams. Maybe it's just kind of focused. I think I would like to direct this question to Chloe. She's an actuary. So how do you find that in your team? Do you have the opportunity to meet other people in other teams during work? And if so, what are the projects or situations that you're in that would give you this opportunity?
Well, I mean, actuarial is not really a client-facing role, but we still deal with like a lot of departments outside of actuarial. Like we deal with product, we deal with customer service, IT, and so on. So yeah, definitely you'll still be dealing with a lot of people. And I think no matter in what job you are, people management would be a big part of your job regardless. So I think just learning how to speak to people in a way that is speak to people and like connect with them, it would really help like whatever field you're in.
Well, I would assume that actuarial roles are a little bit less leaning towards, making new colleagues everywhere else, because, new projects every time turn over, and then you have different people coming in from all over the place coming to meet you. And so that's one avenue how people might meet each other in the workplace. And that is you're sort of forced to work together. And then after a while, you get to know each other, and yeah, although it's professionally, it's still a form of networking, right? But in a role that is a little bit more like you have your own task to do, and maybe it's a bit more specialized, are there opportunities to meet other people?
Yeah, of course. Of
Yeah.
course there still is.
So no excuse for anyone
Nope.
to not meet others in the workplace.
Actually, I can share even a role like mine, where I deal with a lot of people, different departments and different entities and so on. I realized that post-pandemic, when we don't have face-to-face meetings, the personal touch of meeting someone in real life actually plays a huge role in how you connect with someone. This conversation today, we can be having it on Teams, right?
Yeah.
And the level of connection I'll have with each one of you is will be very different,
Yeah.
And I felt that in the post-pandemic era, that is something that it needs more deliberate attention, right? Previously, prior to the pandemic, when we call for a meeting, we'll meet everyone face to face. People from various departments that I've only seen names in the email, we tend to meet them, and that's fine. Whereas now we have people where I've been seeing their names for years on end, but I don't know how they look like.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and some even worse, I don't even know how they sound like. And because of that, I felt that the personal touch, it's not as good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think like just like Chloe said, as someone, I think probably I would say I'm the most senior here in terms of age. So as you climb your corporate ladder or your career path, when you are probably we just started a job, you are more technical in nature.
Yeah.
But as you climb up the corporate ladder, it's more towards people management more than the technical skills that are required. Yeah. So from managing the board of directors, shareholders, top managements, or even to your subordinates. Yeah, it's all about management skills. Yeah, human to human relationships.
Yeah, that's true. I guess sort of almost inevitably, you can start off with a very technical role where you just have to know your thing and then just do it. But eventually, if you want to progress and grow in any way, you have to kind of start getting to know people, start getting to know how to interact with people and interact with different people at that, because not everyone has the same personality as well. And the higher you go, do you find that the dynamic changes, like the way that when you talk to people or the way that people talk to you, it has changed in any way?
Definitely. When you were young, right? When you were young, you tend to see someone that's more senior than you, and you tend to felt that more inferior in a way. Yeah, that compared to the senior, that he probably knows a lot compared to you. So, but as you grow older, you started to feel that probably I know more than anyone that I talk to. But what I found out is that that's not true. That's not true, right? For instance, if I were to talk to a very young chap, 20 odds, okay, they could be telling me some of the things that Gen Z are doing. Yeah, and things that they like people like me might not know, right? For instance, we are still talking about Facebook as a social media, as a way of connecting to people. But the Gen Z will tell you that, what is Facebook? I only have TikTok account or Instagram account,
So MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace. Nah, not that. So that's also things that you felt, you can learn from the young people. So yeah, there's no such things that, I'm more inferior, you're more superior kind of thing. So yeah, just go with the flow.
There are people younger than me in the workplace. There are people much older as well. I suppose from this middle perspective, it's kind of seeing how both sides interact with each other as well and being like the person in the middle, right? Like you said, sometimes you're talking to a senior, you don't know whether to hold your tongue, whether to suggest something because they might not know something. They might know something you don't know. And so then they're like, you don't know things, you don't understand these things. So you kind of get scared. But then if you're talking to someone more junior than you, sometimes I find that, I also maybe I'm not too familiar and I am looking for opinions, but sometimes they might be a bit scared to share it because they're afraid that they're not going to say what you want to hear. So being able to see from both sides also gives a new perspective of like what I'm experiencing with with my juniors is maybe what my seniors are experiencing with me as well. And so you can sort of like try and translate that left, right, and center and make that work for you, I suppose. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. Bush, you got anything to add?
Well, I think the whole idea of like as you progress, as you become more and more senior, I think there is a slight tendency to somewhat forget how you felt when you were a new joiner.
Oh yeah.
It's a slight tendency to forget how were you when you were in that position. Be it having the first presentation that you've ever made, or being first time meeting the CEO. And I suppose it's always to look back and to stay grounded, to be able to relate with those new guys.
Yeah.
So say, hey, when I was their age, when I was doing this, my first presentation, this is how I felt.
Yeah.
What would I have wanted my manager to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I try and do that, So I say, hey, it's your first presentation, how are you feeling, and so on. So I suppose it's being able to look back and put yourself in the position. In terms of looking upwards, one thing I realize as you go up in the whole spirit of networking, the higher in the hierarchy you go, the lesser time opportunity you have with that particular individual. Okay?
Yeah.
So for example, if you have a more junior person versus someone like, Edwin, the CMO. So with the CMO, you probably have maybe 10 minutes tops for you to be able to have a conversation, to talk to them. And then if you go further up, maybe with our CEO, probably 3 minutes tops. Maybe you're just heading to the lift and you just have to quickly catch him. If you go further up to the board, to network with the board, it's even less of a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose when it's acknowledging this, as you go up, you have lesser time and being able to plan yourself for those networking opportunities on what you're going to say and how you're going to come across. So this will be my thought process when you're managing upwards or downwards.
Yeah. It's true. I think that's what makes a good people manager as well, is being able to relate either way. So especially to the junior staff who are looking at you to guide them, it helps a lot to give them grace and to also say, that I understand I was there as well, and I can put myself in your shoes. So don't worry about it. Eventually, we all develop and grow from this, right? Yeah, I think that helps people get out of their shell quite a bit. Okay, so with that, I think we can wrap up this conversation. Are there any last words from you guys that you'd like to share?
Why not start with Chloe? Yeah, she's quite quiet. Yeah.
Okay.
Last words. I think networking shouldn't be as intimidating as some of us treat it to be. Just like what Edwin and Prusho said, just be yourself, go in with like a mindset of what you want out of the conversation, and just be open, basically.
I think for me, networking, you should create environment whereby it happens naturally and it's not something that is forced. And at the same time, genuinely know the type of person you are, and make sure that you're comfortable with the kind of person you are. And I think these two tips will really help when it comes to networking with people.
I think I'll end with the analogy of what I've been saying throughout this 35 minutes. That I play badminton. Yeah. So there was this legend who mentioned, when I was young, I have strength, I have the speed, but I have no wisdom. But when I'm old, I have the wisdom, but no strength and the speed. So what does it tell you is that this analogy or this moral of the story is that anyone has sort of like a superiority irregardless of your age, right? So as I said, just be yourself, be comfortable with yourself. If it comes, it comes. If those who are very much transactional per se kind of people, the relationship won't last. You might know him, might get his card during an event, but the relationship won't last. Yeah. So only a genuine people that would really like to talk to you, know more about you, that's where the relationship will last.
Yeah. Sometimes you exchange contacts on LinkedIn, you don't even remember their names, so how do you search them up? So genuine connections, sincerity. I like to bring back curiosity about someone else. And also, I like to add that to not have the fear to talk about yourself sometimes as well, because it is a two-way conversation. So meeting someone doesn't just mean that you are listening to what they have to offer, but you offer as well information about yourself. And that way, people will have an equal, like you both will have like a balanced gauge on kind of what kind of people each other are and what can you bring to the table as well. All right, with that, thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast about networking. We hope that some of the advice here are helpful for you and that you take away something out of it, be it in your personal life, your career, interviews for your job as well. Goodbye.